following is a presentation of the Reviewing Network Sports. Hello everybody and welcome to another, not just another episode of the NFL Network, the episode of the NFL Network. What do I mean by that? I don't know, but this is it. This is the regular season finale, Week 18. We're 1 week away from the start of the postseason, and it's turning out to be a postseason that will be one for the ages, mostly because no Kansas City in the playoffs. There's a lot of teams that weren't in there the year before. The whole dynamic of the whole thing is about to be, to paraphrase Dwayne Johnson, the bureaucracy in the NFL is about to change. But then again, Philadelphia could win the Super Bowl all over again, even though they're the third seed right now. But you get the idea. This is going to be a very fun postseason, regardless of what happens here. We have a lot to get to here this weekend because not only are we covering our path to the playoffs, which we'll get to in just a second. Not only are we covering our power rankings, our predictions, but we'll have the final playoff predictions once we're all said and done with the predictions overall. Not only that, we'll take a look and see who is more than likely to receive the number one pick in the NFL draft following this weekend's games, and I will reveal what game I'm going to be covering this weekend on the Sunday Night NFL Rewatch, because if you don't know already, I'm officially boycotting the Sunday Night Football finale because I have to do it for my sanity's sake. So which game am I going to be covering this weekend? We'll reveal all that and more coming up in just a little bit here, but we got a lot to get to here, so I've already wasted your time. Let's go ahead and get that lovely music up in the background. Come on, lift it up into the heavens, everybody. It's the final time we'll be doing this today, this season, I should say. It's the NFL Network's path to the playoffs. What the hell was that? I bet that's what you're thinking to yourself right now. No, you're probably thinking to yourself, shut the fuck up and just get over it. Get on with it already. Get on with it. Okay. Calm myself down. Let's take a look at where we stand right now in the playoff picture. Well, most of everything is sealed up. It's just a matter of what's the positioning going to be. Because here's where we are right now with the AFC, with both conferences. Here's the AFC. Right now, the Denver Broncos are still hanging in there in the top seed right now, but New England is not too far behind them, and if Denver somehow loses to the backups to the Chargers this weekend, the Patriots could find themselves back in the number one seed. However, the same can also be said for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, if Denver and New England loses and Jacksonville wins out, they become the number one seed. But then there's even more of a scenario where if all three of those teams lose, then the Texans, if they win, can get the number one seed in the AFC. So there is a lot of scenarios happening this weekend here. As you see, the Chargers have also clinched a playoff spot. The Buffalo Bills clinched a playoff spot, even though they both lost this weekend. And yet the only one that didn't do what they were supposed to do this weekend, the Pittsburgh Steelers, sitting there at number 4. No Y, no X, no W, just sitting there. You could have wrapped it up, but no, you couldn't have done that because, heaven forbid, we have to make the Cleveland Browns have their Super Bowl this year and then keep the Baltimore Ravens in there for what could potentially be a disastrous end to your season. But we'll get to that. We will get to that as we move along here. But Indianapolis was eliminated this weekend, but also that's really not much of a shocker. I mean, come on, Indianapolis. I mean, what a colossal misfire that they had this year. But at bottom line, the only team that has still life in the AFC playoffs is the Baltimore Ravens, and it's literally going to come down to the final game of the season to decide the final roster spot. Who's going to be the AFC North champion? Who's going to host the 5 seed on 2 weeks is next week, but we will find that out by the end of the show today, and then we'll find out for conformity. I don't even know if that's a real word or not. We'll confirm it Sunday night after the AFC North Championship finale. But let's go ahead and move on to the NFC, because the NFC also has a number of notable situations to deal with here as well. So we know that the last game between the Seahawks and the 49ers is going to decide who gets the NFC's number 1 seed. That's for certain. That'll be Saturday night, and it's fitting because the last 10 years, it has always been a battle between these two teams. In fact, 6 years ago, it was actually a battle to find out which team was going to go ahead and win the NFC's number 1 seed. Back in 2019, it was San Francisco and Seattle. It was at Seattle, but San Francisco pulled out the win. This time, Seattle will have a chance to return the favor in San Francisco this week, but we'll touch on that later on here. Those are the only two teams that can get the number 1 seed. Everything else is a toss-up right now. Chicago currently has the track for the number 2 seed. They've won the NFC North thanks to the Detroit and Green Bay losing last week. Philadelphia is still hanging in there in the NFC East spot. I think they can move up to the 2 spot, maybe, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm assuming they can. Los Angeles and Green Bay are pretty much locked in the wild card position. Green Bay is more than likely going to be playing in Chicago or Philadelphia, depending on what happens this weekend. The Rams still have a chance, possibly, to maybe move into the 5 seed, but I think they're locked into the 6 seed after what happened yesterday against the Atlanta Falcons. Then, kind of like with the AFC North, we will find out our NFC South champion. There is a scenario here that we'll touch on when we get to this game in particular in a little bit here. But right now, the Carolina Panthers are still hanging in there at the NFC South spot right there at 8-8. Tampa Bay, of course, lost to Miami, and they have really collapsed, 7-9. They've lost 4 straight, and that's about where we stand right there. All the other teams we've kind of already assessed of who's been eliminated or not. But right now in the NFC, Carolina and Tampa Bay are fighting for the last spot in the playoffs. Everybody else is fighting for seeding positioning and all that good stuff. So there you go. That's what we're looking at right now. Before we get to the actual games themselves, let's go ahead and get to what we usually get to here, our power rankings, our last of the 2025 regular season. And honestly, with so much happening this past weekend, most of the wins this weekend were not really all that impressive. Even the Chicago-San Francisco game, which was a great game overall, it's just more San Francisco just kind of having a cakewalk schedule overall. I mean, this was probably their toughest match of the season against the Chicago Bears. And it will probably not be the last time they see them in the playoffs, but yeah, it was slim pickings to figure out which teams should be in the top 5 this weekend. So at number 5, I had the Houston Texans, who really came out swinging in that game against the Chargers on Saturday afternoon to put them in the playoffs. But yeah, it was not the easiest win overall for them. But nevertheless, I put them in there at the 5 spot. At number 4, the Seattle Seahawks, who had a commanding win over Carolina. Their defense really came up big in this one here, and if they can bring that to the next game against San Francisco, they're going to be the number 1 seed. Number 3, the Jacksonville Jaguars, in a very good matchup with the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, the Colts did give them everything they could, but Jacksonville still is one of those teams right now that could be fighting for the number 1 seed, along with the number 2 and the number 1 team, the New England Patriots at number 2, which really isn't that much to say because of who they face, the New York Jets. I mean, anybody could beat the New York Jets at this point, but to do what they did there, I mean, they mollywopped Aaron Glenn's New York Jets to the point where Aaron Glenn's probably not safe either, but then the number 1 team, I put the Denver Broncos up there because it was a close battle. The hype on Thursday night was about, is this Travis Kelce's final game at Arrowhead? Just like you could have taken a drink with your family on how many times they said, is this the last time we see Travis Kelce at Arrowhead? Because they said it like 25 times on Thursday night. We get it. You love Kansas City. You love the fact that you love the fact that the tight end of that team is marrying overrated trash of trash and Taylor Swift. I get it, all right, but move along, get to the game here. But I'll give Kansas City this: they at least put some effort into it. But Denver was the one that pulled it down in the end. So, like I said, very slim pickings for the power rankings this week in general. But hey, it means that that's what more can you really say about this? So let's go ahead and get right to what you all have been waiting for. My picks for week number 18, the regular season finale. Who's going to be going where? What will the playoffs look like? We're going to find out right now. So our journey begins in week 18 on Saturday afternoon with the first of a doubleheader. We have what was supposed to be the NFC South Championship, but technically it's not anymore. I'll explain that in just a moment here. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Carolina Panthers. And for this particular week, since this is the Week 18 finale, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the seasons in general for a lot of these teams here. Starting off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which started their season off so promisingly. Once again, kind of like last year, they started off as potentially the dark horse in the NFC to maybe go all the way to all the way for a deep Super Bowl run. They started 6-2. It was their best start since Tom Brady's last season in 21. And then, no, excuse me, that's not true because he was in Brady was back in 2022, but it's the best start since 2021. And then they lost six of their next seven to drop to 7-9. I mean, the injuries have been piling up for them. I mean, this is the textbook definition of a true collapse. And it's not the good news for them is that they're not the only team to have to deal with this year. We're going to touch on some other ones who have really felt the torture of this, and not having guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin there, as much as Baker Mayfield and is doing the best he can to hold it together, it's just not enough in the end, and it really could cost them the chance to repeat again. But it could open the door for their opponent, the Carolina Panthers, who had their best season in years. I mean, this is their best start they've had since Cam Newton's peak year in 2017. It's close to his peak year in 2017 when they last made the playoffs, but I mean, this is a team that really started the season off very much kind of like the last couple of years. You can't really get a good grasp of who they are overall, but nevertheless, they have been one of those teams that has been so consistently inconsistent, if you will, because because they had a stretch where, you know, they beat some teams like the Atlanta Falcons, the Dolphins, the Cowboys, the Jets. It's just like, okay, those guys really aren't that good. But then you beat teams like the Green Bay Packers and then the Los Angeles Rams, and then all of a sudden it's just like, hey, you guys are sitting there at 8-6 right now. I mean, yeah, you got a tough game against Seattle coming up here, but the fact that they were they're still in this position here is very interesting overall for a number of different reasons. One, I mean, it's showing that, hey, whatever Dave Canales is doing for Bryce Young, it's working for them right now. But not only that, here's the interesting thing that's happening this weekend with this particular matchup here, because before yesterday's game on Monday night, this was looking like it was going to be straightforward. Who's going to win? Whoever wins this game wins the NFC South. Well, that's not the case now, because because of what happened with Atlanta yesterday and the Rams beating the Rams, even if Carolina loses this game on Sunday, all the Panthers have to do is just watch the Falcons-Saints game and see if the Falcons can beat the Saints. Because if they do that, the Panthers automatically win the division because there would be a tiebreaker, and Carolina would win the tiebreaker. So yeah, that's an interesting scenario that could legitimately happen this weekend. So yeah, Tampa Bay could win on Saturday, but either way, it really wouldn't matter, because all the New Orleans, all that they would have to do is just wait until tomorrow, the next day, to see Atlanta play New Orleans. And if New Orleans loses to Atlanta, they clinch the NFC South. So this is a very interesting scenario that could happen here. But with this particular game in particular, it's a divisional matchup. You've got two teams fighting for a playoff position, and Tampa Bay, sitting there hoping for the Saints to win the next day. So this is good. And considering the Panthers beat them a couple weeks ago, I think it's going to be the Buccaneers who get the revenge on them in their home stadium for this one here. So I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this one. It's going to be a very close matchup overall, and I think it will come down to the wire once again here, whether it's a game-winning field goal by Tampa Bay or an interception. I think it'll come to that, but I'm going to go with Tampa Bay to win this one, to go to 8-9, and the Buccaneers to wrap their season at 8-9. But like I said, it probably won't even matter if New Orleans loses to Atlanta the next day. So, but will I think that happens? Stay tuned to find out. But then following that, we have our battle for the NFC's number one seed, the Seattle Seahawks taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Seattle, I mean, they've kind of had a mixed bag of a season overall, but the last couple of weeks, they have really shown that they are they have a team to not be messed with here. Sam Darnold, I mean, really is coming into form here. I mean, he is playing some of his best football overall. I mean, there's been a couple times when he's looked pretty bad against the Los Angeles Rams the first time around, but the last couple of weeks, man, I mean, they have looked really good. The defense has gotten a whole lot better. Jackson Smith and Jigba's having a breakout season overall. And they're going to be taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who they lost to in the Week 1 opener of the season in Lumen Field. And despite all the injuries that San Francisco has had to deal with, no Nick Bosa, no Dre Greenlaw, no Aaron Banks, no Tolona Hafanga, no Travarius Ward, and they traded away Deebo Samuel. I mean, this is a team that should have been dead in the water, but nope, not this time around. They have looked really, really solid across the board. And I said they all got injured, but no, they technically most of them were traded away. But this is a team that has a lot of major injuries. The big one, of course, being Nick Bosa not being there and Fred Warner. And yet somehow, some way, this fucking team still manages to win games. Let's put it this way: if the Steelers had as many injuries as the 49ers have had, they wouldn't even have as many wins as they've had. But for some reason, San Francisco, everything is just clicking for them right now. I don't know if it's just the NFL rigging it so the 49ers can have the home field advantage all the way to the Super Bowl, because this is what's going to happen if the 49ers end up winning this game. If they win, they've got home field advantage all the way to the big game on February 5th, because it's going to be at Levi Stadium. But Seattle, I think, is going to look for revenge in this matchup here. I think that they really missed out on an opportunity to beat them at home in the first week of the season, and they're trying to get the home field advantage back to Seattle for the first time in a long, long time. I think this is actually the first time since 2014, since they had the home field advantage in Seattle. So this is going to be a very, very intriguing matchup overall. Can San Francisco hold it together one more time to get a big win and have home field advantage all the way to the Super Bowl? Or will Seattle get the best of them and get revenge for what happened 6 years ago? For this matchup in particular, for the fact that they lost to the 49ers the first time around, I get a feeling that Seattle's going to come back and get the revenge in this one here to not only beat the 49ers, even the season series, but then take the NFC's number 1 seed. I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks to go to 14-3 and get the NFC's number 1 seed, and San Francisco to drop all the way down into the wild card round at 12-5. Next up, we have got the Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints hosting the Saints at the New Atlanta Falcons. That's what I was trying to say. New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons. And, with the Atlanta Falcons, you're playing your best football you've had all season, and you're doing it after you've been eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, they must really be trying to keep Raheem Morris around. But question is this going to be enough to keep Kirk Cousins around, or will he be released and go somewhere else? Because, Kirk Cousins has been playing the best football he's played so far with the Atlanta Falcons overall, stepping in for Michael Penix Jr. after he tore his ACL. And, it's hilarious how they're playing their best games after they've been eliminated. It's just like right now they're basically playing to keep this team together here. And the only is it gives them confidence for next season, but the big problem is, can you keep that consistency going? Because now they're using Bijan Robinson more than they did beforehand. Now they're using Kyle Pitts more. Now they're using Drake London more. This is something that you should have been doing all season long, and yet you have not been able to do that, unfortunately. And, it couldn't have come at a worse time for them, as they have nothing to play for here except to help Carolina. They're going to be taking on the New Orleans Saints, who, after starting off with a 2-10 start, having one of the worst starts of their lives, they found their way to start playing their best football as well, even after they've been eliminated. They're sitting now at 6-10. They've won 4 straight. Tyler Shuck is playing pretty good football all overall. I mean, they have been playing really good with him. I think he might be a solid future for them overall. They just got to build a team around him, because Alvin Kamara, I don't think he's going to be there for too much longer. Chris Olave is still there. I think we'll see Cam Jordan take the stage for the last time here in this matchup here, as he's looks like he's going to retire pretty soon. But yeah, in this matchup here, you got 2 rising teams here in a matchup that could have been worth it a couple of weeks ago if they teams were actually playing as good as they were now. But with the Falcons, in terms of which team I think is going to do the best overall, because it's in Atlanta, I think the Falcons have the upper hand in this one here. And not to mention, even though the Falcons even though the Saints lost to the Falcons is in their stadium is a month ago, and it could easily be another one of those games where even the series up here. But I'm going with the hot hand right now. I think the Falcons are using Bijan, Kyle, and London and they're doing them all very well the last couple of weeks. I think that trend will continue here. I think it gives them a lot of hope going forward into next year, and I think it's going to help Carolina get into the playoffs as well. So I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons to win this one, go to 8-9, and the Saints to drop to 6-11. And speaking of teams that are playing much better, even though they have long since been eliminated, we've got our next matchup here. This time it's the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns in Cincinnati. Cincinnati, like I said, has been playing good again since Joe Burrow's come back. I mean, they've won 3 of their last 5 games, but unfortunately, the 2 critical matchups that they needed to win to keep their momentum going, they collapsed against the Buffalo Bills, and then they had a shutout against the Ravens, who just mopped the floor with them. But then 45 points over Miami, 37 over Arizona. It's just going to show you that Joe Burrow is the rock that held this thing together. But the Bengals just need to... something's got to change for the Cincinnati Bengals. I get a feeling we're going to see a lot of AFC North teams losing their coaches. I think 3 of the 4 jobs in the AFC North may honestly be in jeopardy after this Sunday's games, because we all probably think that Cleveland probably is going to be heading out soon. He's going to be moving away from Kevin Stefanski. Cincinnati could move away from Zach Taylor, and I think the loser of the Ravens-Steelers game, whether it's Harbaugh or Tomlin, I think one of them will be let go too if they miss the playoffs here. I mean, hell, even today they were saying that possibly if Mike Tomlin loses on Sunday, there's a good chance that he might get fired and go off to television for a year and then go coach somewhere else. But keep in mind, this is Andrew Filipponi. He's the guy that still believes that Brandon Ayuk will soon sign with the Steelers, even though it's been almost 2 years now since those reports came out. But Cleveland, by the way, congratulations on your Super Bowl. You beat the Steelers. What are you going to do now? Go back to sucking. And we'll touch on the losing team in that matchup last weekend, but in a little bit here. But Cleveland really has nothing to celebrate at this point. They're still a terrible football team. The defense wasn't even playing that great overall. I mean, they didn't. Myles Garrett still has that sack record. He's gonna break against Cincinnati. We all know he's gonna do it, but yeah, the defense. Usually the strongest part of that team is not playing so well. I mean, even Shedeur didn't even have the best game last week against the Steelers. I mean, this is a game. That was a game where the losing team did most of the damage to themselves, but. Yeah, this has been a rocky season overall, and like I said, I think Kevin Stefanski is going to be gone, and just Cleveland needs to just reboot everything and stop talking about bringing back Deshaun Watson. Why are you bringing him back? Like, at this point, you have more than the right to get rid of him and go and try to move on with Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. No, we got to keep him around because we gave him $250 million guarantee. He's a good guy. No, he's not. But, in this matchup here between the Bengals and the Browns, I wonder which team I think is going to win. How about the one that's actually doing something, and actually still has a decent offense overall here? So yeah, I'm going with Cincinnati to win this one, because I just don't think the Browns have enough there to really hold this together overall. Myles Garrett may get a sack record, but that's the only thing Cleveland Browns fans will be celebrating. But hopefully they'll be celebrating the end of the Kevin Stefanski era, or the Bengals maybe. And the Bengals fans should probably be dreading the potential extension of Zach Taylor as the head coach, because that's probably what's going to happen next year. If I had to choose between Stefanski or Taylor getting fired, probably Stefanski's going first. But Bengals, I think, go to 7-10. Browns drop to 4-13. Next up, we have got the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, and this is going to be in, I think this is in U.S. Bank Stadium, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is in U.S. Bank Stadium. So we have the Packers taking on the Vikings. Yet another team that waited until they were eliminated from the playoffs to start playing their best football. They've won 4 straight. They've knocked the Detroit Lions out of the playoffs on Christmas Day, even though the Vikings had one of the worst offenses in football that day. But they're going to be taking on a Green Bay Packers team that literally has nothing to play for. They are locked into the 7th seed. Jordan Love is still in the concussion protocol. Malik Willis, He did okay against Baltimore, but they still lost that game. There's a lot of injuries for Green Bay to deal with here, so I would not be shocked at all if a lot of the regular starters in the Green Bay game end up sitting out for this one here. It's been a rocky season for Green Bay that started off with so much promise. I mean, Micah Parsons being traded to them, and then he suffers an injury in the game against Denver, and then Jordan Love has the injury that keeps him out of the most of the Bears game as well as the Ravens game, and it's just not a good time right now. It's a team that's limping into the playoffs with the hope that maybe things will turn around once the playoffs actually begin. Maybe they can have another game like they had a couple years ago when they were the 7th seed and went into Dallas and beat the crap out of the Dallas Cowboys, but it's tough to say where that's going to be at right now. But in terms of this matchup here, I think the Vikings right now are playing good football right now. They're giving a lot of optimism for next season. This was J.J. McCarthy's essentially his rookie year overall, and everyone was expecting him to take the next level, even though he missed out the last season overall. I think if he keeps this pace up and they build a team around him, the Vikings, I think, could be a contending team next season overall. I think they have a much better future than another team we're going to talk about in just a little bit here. I think their Super Bowl window has been slammed shut, but we'll touch on that in a little bit here. But I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings to win this one. I got the Vikings going to 9-8 and the Packers limping into the playoffs at 9-7-1, but hopefully with Jordan Love coming back in the wild card round, maybe things will come together once again. Maybe. We'll see. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys in New York to take on the Giants. Dallas Cowboys season, it started off pretty bad. I mean, they were 3-5-1 at the bye week. They won 4 of their next 7 after they made the trade for Quinton Williams and got some help overall, and beat some pretty good teams. I mean, they beat the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl last year, Philadelphia and Kansas City, and then they just kind of fell apart after that. They lost to Detroit, they lost to Minnesota, they lost to the Chargers, they beat the Commanders, which really isn't saying a whole lot on Christmas Day, but they're going to be taking on the New York Giants, who, this has been a tough season overall. Of course, Brian Daboll got fired halfway through. Jackson Dart's shown some promise, but then it doesn't help that he keeps getting injured with concussions, and no Camp Scatterboo, no Malik Neighbors. Yeah, they beat the Raiders last week, but I mean, come on, it's the Raiders. They're the worst team in football right now. Now, officially the worst team ever. We'll touch on them in a little bit here, but in a matchup here that really doesn't matter for either one of these teams because the season is over. The Giants, I think, can get as high as can still get the number 1 pick if the Raiders somehow beat the Chiefs, which I don't think is going to happen here. I don't think that's the case here. So I think they should be staying comfortably at the 2 seed, as a number 2 pick in the draft. And the Cowboys right now, even though they're officially out, there's still some things that show a little bit of optimism for the season going forward. If the Cowboys can fix this defense around, I think this team can really be something next year overall. With George Pickens, what he brought to the table this season, Pittsburgh should be kicking themselves for letting him go, because look at what he's been doing since they brought him over. So I think the Cowboys should win this one here to wrap their season up at 8-1. Giants dropped to 3-14, and hopefully you get a good quarterback, and not even a good quarterback, but you get some help in the draft this April. Following that, we have a game that may have some playoff implications overall. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tennessee Titans. Jacksonville has certainly had a very interesting season, to say the least. I mean, the season started off so promisingly with that big Monday night win against Kansas City, sitting there at 4-1, and then the 2 games at their bye week, they got blasted by Seattle and Los Angeles to be at 4-3. Everyone kind of thought, oh, here we go again. Jacksonville's going to limp for the rest of the season. They've only lost 1 game since the bye week, and that was against the Texans. That was that comeback win for the Texans, but yeah, they have been rock solid the last couple of weeks. I mean, they went into Denver, the best team right now in the AFC, and put a big win there to make people go, oh shit, the Jacksonville Jaguars are for real. And sure enough, that's exactly what everyone's thinking right now. And like I said, if things work out in their favor, if Denver and New England lose to the Chargers and the Dolphins this week, the Jaguars, if they win, could find themselves at the number 1 seed, something that hasn't happened for them in 25 in nearly over 25 years. I think the last time that happened was in 1999, where they where they were the AFC's number one seed, and then they lost to the Tennessee Titans, which, funny enough, is the team they're facing this week. And let's just say they look a lot better than they did at the start of the season. But yeah, Tennessee is one of those teams that's just waiting for the season to be over with so they can start thinking about who they're going to select as their head coach overall. The rumors are that it's going to be Matt Nagy for the Kansas City Chiefs, which I would say, did you see what he did in Chicago? I don't know. I would really reconsider that option overall. But I mean, Cam Warner's definitely looked a lot better overall. The fact that he's been the one that's been playing all season long. I mean, that's what I was saying at the beginning of the year. He has he's the number one pick overall, but he's probably had the most coolest his first season ever, because the pressure isn't put on him. The tension really isn't on him in general here. He's been getting better as the year goes on, and nobody's really looking at Cam Warner going like, oh, he's a bust right now. It's just like, do you see the team that he has around him? They got to build a team around him, and hopefully this new season, with whoever comes in as the new head coach, they'll be able to fix that in general here. I don't think it's gonna be a game here this week where he goes in there and beats a team that's looking for the number one seed. I think Jacksonville will stick in it here in this one, put in the good matchup here. I think they win this one. I think the Jaguars win this one to go to 13-4 to wrap their season up, and the Titans drop to 3-14. Following that, we have the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans. The Texans, another one of those teams that looked like they were going to start off, but they were going to be a really bad team this season. They started 0-3, and yet since then they have won 8 straight. They've only lost 2 games in their last 14. I mean, they're sitting right now comfortably at 11-5, potentially at 12-5 if they pull this one out, and hope that New England, Jacksonville, and Denver all lose out, so eventually they could get the number one seed. I mean, that's still a possibility for them. But the Texans have been pretty solid in the second half of the season. I mean, the defense is coming up big. The last couple of weeks, C.J. Stroud and the Texans' offense has been cooking. I mean, against the Chargers, they put 14 points up in their first 2 drives, on very quick drives too, nonetheless. And that could make this team very, very dangerous. This is probably the most dangerous the Texans have looked in a long, long time. But the question will be, can they move it to the next level here? Can they get past these teams like the Baltimore Ravens that have had their number for so many years? No Kansas City to deal with this time around, but they're going to be taking on the Colts. And the Colts, oh boy. You should just be grateful that you are not as bad as the Jeff Saturday season, mid-season, where Jim Irsay decided to fire Frank Reich and hire somebody who had never coached before in the professional leagues, and see him he's on TV now, and basically come in and finish the season off here. And yeah, the end result was less than spectacular. That's still the worst this team has ever been, but bringing in old man Phillip Rivers to do nothing to help this team out. I mean, this was a team that started the season 8-2, and they have not won a game since their bye week. And really, when you look at the season schedule overall, that first half of the season was such a cakewalk of a schedule. The 2 teams they lost to were the Rams and the Steelers, who were looking like good playoff contenders at one point for both teams. But then the bye week happens. You face Kansas City. You face red-hot Houston and Jacksonville, a red-hot Seattle team, a red-hot San Francisco team, a red-hot Jacksonville team, and now you got to face the Texans again. What did you think was going to happen when this was all said and done? Phillip Rivers really should not have come out of retirement here. This wasn't about getting this team back on track to the playoffs overall. It was a publicity stunt by Jim Irsay's daughter, who right now is not looking like a genius right now. But we'll see what happens as time goes on here. This is only the first season, but yeah. I think the momentum doesn't change whatsoever. This is one of the worst collapses of the season, and like I said, there were a lot of collapses for a number of teams this season. But when you start 8-2 and have not won a single game since then, we could be looking at Shane Steichen's last game here as the coach of the Indianapolis Colts here. But I think the Texans move up to 12-5. Colts lose this one to go to 8-9, and massive changes abound coming next season for the Indianapolis Colts. That's for damn sure. Following that, we have got the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets in the final regular season game at Highmark Stadium. And judging by the fact that the Bills lost a big game that would have given them a better seating and also a possible AFC East title, but Yeah, they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles in a pretty bad game. This will probably be the last game in Highmark Stadium because because it looks like it's more than likely they're going to have to, if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to go there as the 7th seed and go to all these different places, which is not hard to do. I mean, it can be done. 6 seeds have done that before. We've not had a 7th seed do that, but hey, there's a first time for everything, and I still think the Buffalo Bills, they're going to be committed to winning out here because this is their last this is really their last chance in their Super Bowl window at this point. But yeah, needless to say, what the fuck were you thinking? Not is going for a 2-point conversion to try to win it there against Philadelphia. Philadelphia did absolutely nothing in that game, and the Bills get this opportunity, and then they decide to go for 2. I mean, that's a decision that's going to haunt that team this season in general, especially if they lose out early in the playoffs. But here's the good news, though. They're taking on the New York Jets, who are... What do I have to say about the Jets that's already been said? They're fucking terrible. They have always been terrible all season long. In fact, there's even a possibility that Aaron Glenn may not survive the play this season after this game. Like, it's his first year. They made such a big deal about bringing Aaron Glenn in here as the head coach, and this is the end result of it. They're not. It's not even looking like they're going to try to keep him around. But I think they should keep him around at least one more season. If it doesn't work, then you get rid of him. But don't get rid of him after your first season, especially since you sought him out so dearly. But nevertheless, though, I think Buffalo should win this one, not just because it's the Jets, but it's also because the last home game in Highmark Stadium, period. I mean, this is the last game that they'll have before they move into the new stadium, and that should be a rocking atmosphere. I mean, it's a big game for that team in particular. It should be an exciting matchup for them to finish the season off on a high note, especially... Ooh, excuse me. Good Lord. Especially after how the last game ended. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills to win this one. I think the Buffalo Bills should win this one to go to 12-5, and the Jets to drop to 3-14. Actually, they are not locked into the 7th seed yet. So, unless the 7th seed they could be as high as the 6th seed if they so there is still maybe a possibility they could host a playoff game, but then again, the 7th seed, whether it's the Chargers or the Texans, would have to win out and beat every other team to essentially make the AFC Championship game a 7-6 matchup. But even then, that's easier said than done. But the Bills should win this one to go to 12-5, and the Jets should drop to 3-14, ending a very terrible season for the New York Jets, and one that could potentially see Aaron Glenn be one and done, which who would have saw not coming when they fired him back in last year. Following that, we have the Chicago Bears hosting the Detroit Lions in Soldier Field. It won't be the last game for the Chicago Bears this season there because they won the division. They'll host a wild card matchup next week. And, Caleb Williams and company, I mean, that game on Sunday night was pretty damn epic overall. And Chicago had every opportunity to win that game, but they just couldn't stop Christian McCaffrey from just running all over them. And that really was the biggest fault of that game. The defense, which was looking so strong all season long, just looked kind of terrible in this matchup here overall. But they lost that game. They lost out on getting the number 1 seed, but I mean, it's more than likely they're going to rest the starters in this matchup here since there's really nothing to play for except for playoff positioning overall. And really, that's beyond their control. But they're going to be taking on the Detroit Lions, which Detroit, what the fuck happened to you guys? I mean, and talk about, it's amazing how less than 2 years ago, this team was 30 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl. And they had a lead. They had a massive lead going into that second half, and then Dan Campbell decides to gamble way too goddamn much. And even he said at the end of that game, that might have just been our only opportunity. And the answer to that question is yes, it was your only opportunity because good Lord, you have squandered every opportunity possible. And yeah, this season was pretty bad for them. I mean, here's another one of those teams that collapsed pretty badly. I mean, they were 5-2 to start the year, and then they only won 3 of their next 10 games to drop to 8-8. Is that even right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 of their last 9. 3 of the last 9 games. Okay, I was off a little bit here, but that's what happens when you get rid of when Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn go off, and the guys you replace them with are not that good, and you keep going for it on 4th downs, and you don't keep up against teams that you should easily beat overall. I mean, you brought this onto yourself, and that matchup on Christmas Day is the perfect sum up of the Detroit Lions season overall. A lot of mistakes to the point where even Jared Goff, who has been pretty good all season long, just completely falls apart at the worst possible time. They lost to a Minnesota Vikings team with less than 3 yards of offense in the second half. And yet the Vikings still found a way to win that game. I mean, that's how bad this game was for them. I mean, this is a game that could potentially kill the Detroit Lions Super Bowl window as a whole. I think their their window is cooked right now. They have shown no signs of getting better, and it's just a bad situation right now overall. And guess what? Chicago wants revenge for that 50 burger you put on them earlier in the season. So, needless to say, I think the Bears are going to have their sweet revenge this time around. I'm going to go with the Bears to win this one, to go to 12-5, and the Lions to drop to 8-9. Now, whether or not, do I think that things need to change around Detroit? Possibly. I don't think I would get rid of Dan Campbell, but it just needs to hire better people, man. It just need to hire better offensive and defensive coordinators and just stop gambling so much, because that's what Ron Rivera did. And that's why he never was able to win a Super Bowl, because he kept gambling at the worst possible times. And yeah, it's cool for Dan Campbell to do that all the time, but when it's not working, it makes you look like a complete idiot. It makes you look like a gambling addict more than somebody that knows what he's doing. But that's not my decision. That's the Detroit Lions front office to decide what to do next, and hopefully they make the right decision. But yeah, it's not looking good for them right now. So following that, we have the Denver Broncos is going to LA to take on the Chargers. Broncos have had a pretty solid season overall. Not much more to say about their incredible year overall. I mean, they've been really good all season long. They've had all these different comebacks. You know, Sean Payton and Bo Nix have found the momentum they need to really get things going here. And they're going to be taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, who have had a pretty solid season overall as well. A couple of close games overall. I mean, they did try to come back in that game against Houston on Saturday, but it was a little too late for them. There's been a couple of times where they've really not looked that great, but then again, they haven't looked overall terrible all season long. They've had a lot of injuries as well. You know, Joe Alt was out for the season. Najee Harris, one of their big free agent pickups, was out for the season. Omarion Hampton got banged up early on, but was able to come back. And Justin Herbert's dealing with an injury on his arm too, on his hand too. That ordinarily would keep him from having this team staying on track here, but Chargers have survived overall, and I think they're looking pretty good going into the postseason. But the question becomes, can you find a way to go deep in the playoffs again and not have another charging situation? Because the last 2 times the Chargers made the playoffs, they've blown big leads. Even though Brandon Staley doesn't want you to talk about what happened in 2022, but last year against the Texans in the playoffs, they had a lead going into that game, and then in the second half they completely lost it and never was able to get that back in general. So for this matchup in particular, a lot of the Charger starters are going to be resting in this one, so it's going to be Trey Lance starting in this matchup here. Actually, I don't know if Bo Nix is going to be starting in this. I probably think he will, and it's mostly going to depend on what happens with New England. I think because the number 1 seed in the AFC is still up for grabs, they're going to be looking at that Patriots game very closely against Miami to see how long should they keep Bo Nix in here. But then again, if they win this game, they essentially secure the number 1 seed, and they'll have a week off anyway. So you don't want to get too much rust going on in terms of resting your players overall here, but I do think the Denver Broncos are going to do... Actually, this is going to be in Denver. I'm sorry. I thought this was in Los Angeles. But no, this is not. This is going to be in Denver. So yeah, this should be one where the Denver Broncos should have the advantage here, the home field advantage all the way through the postseason. I think they do win this one here. I think they will get the win. I think they will get the 1 seed. Broncos giving them to go to 14-3, and the Chargers to drop to 11-6. Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders. Kansas City, what can you say about their season, man? I mean, it was bound to happen eventually, but good Lord, that second half of the season was just such a disaster for them. Losing to Denver for the first time in a long time, getting swept by them, honestly, and then, you know, their only win in the second half of the season was against the Colts, and they had to go to overtime for that. The Chiefs in general just looked rough all season long. The offense just looked off in general. The defense wasn't really holding it together at the right time. And you lose Patrick Mahomes to an ACL. Is on the same day you get eliminated. And then all the buzz is about, you know, is this going to be Travis Kelce's final go around here? Which it probably will be. I mean, Here's how you know if someone is really seriously leaving here. We leaving their scenario here. Look around it. Look at the way they leave the stadium. If they stay in there for a little bit longer than they should, more than likely that means that they're if they start moving slowly back to the locker room, more than likely that means they're done. I mean, they've said that with Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger. Sometimes you don't see it. Sometimes you don't see it with guys like Tom Brady or Russell Wilson, but it does happen, and they're going to be taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, who. What can you say about their season overall? It's been terrible. Pete Carroll obviously is not the right answer, and neither is Geno Smith. And I really do think Pete Carroll's going to be one and done. I think the Raiders are going to find a new head coach for them. Overall, I think it's just really not looking good for the future of Pete Carroll overall. I think the Raiders just need a massive reboot right now, and they're in prime position to get the number one pick in the NFL draft, which after losing to the Giants, I mean, this team has a lot of potential. Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer. They don't have a good wide receiving core right now, but they have pieces there, and they could build around this team. I mean, they could find a way to find pieces to bring it together. And if they get the number one pick and get a top quarterback, I mean, there's a possibility that this team could find new life with a new head coach overall. If Pete Carroll is there, I think it's gonna really hurt their chances overall here. But the Geno Smith experiment has to end at this point. I mean, he had a couple good years in Seattle. He has not been very good since then. But yeah, so I think the Chiefs do come back and get one last win for the road. If Travis Kelce goes out with this one, hey, it's a good run for him. He's got a couple of Super Bowls. He'll be good to go. I think the Chiefs win this one to go to 7-9, and the Raiders drop to 2-15. So following that, we have the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals, which I believe this one is going to be in Los Angeles if the Chargers are playing in Denver. I am correct on that. Arizona is yet another team that's waiting for their season to be over with, and it just has been not a good season overall. I think Jonathan Gannon's time is up here. Kyler Murray's time might be up here as well. This could be a team that also could be rebranding as well. Could potentially look at a couple of quarterbacks that could be on the market this offseason. Joe Burrow could possibly get traded from Cincinnati to there. Maybe Tua Tagovailoa, or maybe they get a high draft pick, use that high draft pick on one of the quarterbacks coming out of here. I don't think they're going to have enough for maybe like the top picks, like maybe somebody like a Fernando Mendoza, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But they're going to be taking on the Rams, who it sounds like they're going to be starting their starters in this game here, even though there's really no point, because essentially at this point, you guys are you're pretty much already set for who you're going to be playing. You're either going to be the 5th seed or the 6th seed overall, and you guys have not looked good in the last couple of weeks. You've had some pretty bad games overall. But the Rams should have a comeback game in this one here. I think they can beat a Cardinals team that's just waiting for the season to be over with, so they can go in and start rebranding their team. I think the Rams should win this one easily. They go to 12-5, and then the Cardinals drop to 3-14. All right, so moving on, we have the Miami Dolphins going to New England to take on the Patriots. The Patriots, of course, fighting for the number one seed in the AFC. They need to hope that the Chargers can beat Denver, but considering that Trey Lance is going to be the starter for the Chargers, not looking too good for New England. And New England's season overall has been very interesting. Yeah, they have a 13-3 record, but they also have a soft schedule overall. I mean, look at the teams that they faced this season. None of them really showed a lot of bite overall. The toughest matchups they had this season was with the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. And that's it. I mean, every other team that's been on their schedule has been really, really not that strong overall. Carolina, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Tennessee. Yeah, it's not been a hard schedule for them overall here. And they're taking on a Miami Dolphins team that, yeah, they won last week with Quinn Ewers, but this is another one of those teams that could be looking at a massive rehaul once the season ends next Sunday. I think Mike McDaniel could be out. There's already been reports that Tua may be out as well. Yeah, they beat Tampa Bay last week, but it wasn't even like a dominant win with Quinn Ewers under there. This is a team that desperately needs a lot of help overall here, and yeah, it's gonna be a tough season for the Dolphins fans as well. So, for this matchup in particular, though, I think New England should be able to win this one here, even if they have to put backups in at some point if Denver puts up a bigger lead over the Chargers overall. I think the Patriots should still win this one regardless. Go to 14-3, and then the Dolphins dropping to 7-10. not much more to say about that one overall. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last of the afternoon games, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Washington Commanders. Philadelphia has already cemented the NFC East title for the second year in a row. The first time an NFC East team has done that in 22 years. Of course, the last time was the Philadelphia Eagles. And not really that hard to do it. I mean, yeah, their season overall, it's good, but it's not great. I mean, it's not been their last couple of years. There was that stretch where it looked like they were heading back into 23 territory where they started off strong and then they kept losing these really bad games. The last couple of games they've had have not been that great overall. The Raiders, I mean, you blew out the Raiders. Woohoo. You blew out the Commanders without Jaden Daniels. You barely beat the Buffalo Bills, even though you didn't do jack shit after you took a 13-0 lead and did nothing for most of the game except keep them out of the only thing you did was stop them from getting a 2-point conversion that would have given them the lead and potentially the win. But they're going to be taking on the Commanders, who, yeah, their season has just been fucked all the way through. It's just been not a good run overall. I mean, they looked better against the Cowboys on Christmas, but it's just been a bad season overall. And it's funny how the Commanders' magical run the year before began with a win over Chicago in the last seconds, and then the following year, it's the Chicago Bears where their magic begins as soon as the Commanders make a critical bad play. Because, yeah, they were 3-2 before that game in Chicago. And ever since then, they've only won one game since then. I mean, Jaden Daniels has suffered a lot of injuries. There's been a lot of other injuries on the wide receiver front. No Terry McLaurin for a long period of time. The defense has been pretty banged over. Yeah, this has not been a good run overall for neither one of these two teams. Is for one of these two teams in the month of December, but it's at least looking better for Philadelphia to potentially move back up to 12-5 and maybe, just maybe, potentially get as high as the number 2 seed possibly. So yeah, I think Philadelphia will end the season on a high note here, go into the playoffs looking a little promising, but I think their run to the Super Bowl this time around will be a little bit tougher than it was last year. But I think they will beat the Commanders to go to 12-5 and wrap their season up. Commanders go to 4-13. To wrap their season up. And then finally, game number 272. We have the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers fighting for the AFC North Championship. It will be either the Ravens or AIDS as the 4th seed in the AFC playoffs. The Ravens, their season overall has been very much a mixed bag, but since the bye week, they've really come back on their own. Lamar Jackson coming back into the swing of things and doing a decent enough job, even though there were some costly games in that stretch run against Cincinnati, against the Steelers, and against New England in M&T Bank Stadium. But hey, they realized that, hey, maybe we should use this Derrick Henry guy last week against Green Bay, and that's what pretty much led them to their victory, even though Lamar Jackson didn't play in that game. It was Tyler Huntley, but they put up a 41-24 win to put them into this situation here. But that wouldn't have been a situation had Mike Tomlin and the Steelers simply just gone into a 3-win Cleveland team and just beat them. All they had to do was beat them. They would have had the playoffs. They would have been locked in. They could have rested guys for this game. But no. Not these Steelers. No. Oh, boy. Yeah. Remember when I said last week that me picking the Steelers possibly could be me jinxing them? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, man, that was terrible. That was unbelievably awful. I mean, okay, let's talk about the biggest problem here. First of all, This was one of the best offenses the Steelers have had all season long. They've scored more points in more games than they've ever had in a long time. And yet they've scored at least 20 points in nearly every game this season, with a couple of exceptions. I mean, yeah, there's been a couple of times when they've been under 20. Sometimes they've been under 10. Of course, Buffalo, they lost that game 26-7. They put up 6 points in a game where Cleveland put the first 10 points up and did absolutely nothing for the most of the game. The only reason it's a 13-6 win for them is because the Steelers decided to be stupid and not go for it on 4th and 1 deep into Cleveland territory to make it put them in field goal range, and that's why it was at 13-6. But that's not the point. The point is, you did absolutely nothing in a game where you could have easily won this and end the whole thing, and you couldn't even do that. Like, just what was the game plan here? And don't tell me that you weren't playing simply to just keep Myles Garrett from getting that sack record, because with a performance like that, that's all we think about now, is that you did this so that Myles Garrett cannot get that sack record, which, don't worry, he'll do that the next week against Cincinnati. I mean, that's a given at this point. And guess what? You've now put yourself in a very dangerous situation with the Baltimore Ravens, because now in this game you could have easily rested your starters. You could have put Mason Rudolph in there. You could have put Caleb Johnson in there. Hell, we could have seen Will Johnson playing for the first time ever. But no. No, you want a challenge. You want to be like Pat Narduzzi whenever they lost to Notre Dame, and if he's like, well, it's okay, because if we win against Georgia Tech and Miami, we'll be in the college football championship. Yeah, guess how that turned out for him. Yeah, they won to Georgia Tech, but they lost badly to Miami, and it's Miami who's in the national championship playoffs right now, and not Pitt. I mean, this whole thing is just such a cluttered disaster. You have no idea how depressing it is right now, because some people criticize me for being like, oh, you're not a real fan because you don't give this team a chance. No, I am a real fan because I know what's going to happen here. I know how this is going to turn out. You cannot convince me that this whole thing was conjured up by the NFL. Like, this is the definition of a rigged scenario, because of course, Week 18 has to be a matchup between the Steelers and Ravens for the AFC North. Of course, the NFL doesn't want Aaron Rodgers or the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. Of course, they want Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry to be in there, because now is their golden opportunity to do so with Patrick Mahomes out for the season. Of course it's going to be that way. Of course the Ravens are going to win this game. Of course the Steelers fans are going to see yet another fucking bad collapse in December. I'm sorry. This pissed me off more than any other collapse. Just when you think it can't get any worse with these collapses, this may be the worst one of them all. Because coming off of that win against the Detroit Lions, everyone thought, including myself, oh my God, it's a brand new Steelers generation. It's a brand new time right now. We should have known. I fell into the trap once again. I gave my ex-girlfriend one last chance to prove to me that she was still worth it, and then I wake up and then I head into her apartment and I see her about to have the wildest orgy with these four guys right behind this couch. That's literally like a brazier scene. That brazier's mean, the Steelers are that girl sitting on the couch, and you got the four black guys who are the Ravens behind her. Like, that's what it looks like when I walk. That's what it's like right now. That's how this whole thing feels to me right now. This is the worst case scenario right here. And like I said, we know how this is going to turn out. The Ravens, of course, are going to win this game because the NFL wants Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the playoffs once again. They don't want to see old man Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. They don't want to see a Steelers team that looks so jumbled and all over the place. And they want DK Metcalf to be the bad guy, just like because of what happened in Detroit. Even though Ryan Kennedy dude's a bigger asshole than DK Metcalf is, and yet people are still defending that guy, which is still baffling to me. But it's just, I knew that this was going to happen. I even said a couple weeks ago on the Sunday Night NFL Rewatch, if this turns out to be Steelers and Ravens, I'm not doing this game, because I'm not going to sit there and be tortured by what I know is going to happen, because I know what's going to happen. The Ravens will win this game. They're going to use a lot more of Derrick Henry. And even if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, people forget the Ravens' backups play much better. The backup quarterbacks for the Ravens play so much better against the Steelers than Lamar Jackson does. The Steelers have lost to Tyler Huntley in the past. They've lost to RG3. They've lost to backup quarterbacks by the Ravens. What makes you think this is going to be any different? All I just want is a Steelers team that doesn't have to wait it out to get into the postseason. I just want them to have a season where they actually make the playoffs. They clinch the division. Like, back in the good old days, back in 2008, back in 2017, back in 2016, where they could rest guys and don't have to worry about teams coming in there and ruining it all by doing what the Steelers should have done weeks ago and cement their ticket in. I don't want a situation like this. I'm literally not going to watch this game because I know what's going to happen. I know the Ravens are going to win this game. I know the NFL wants the Ravens in the playoffs so badly. I know the Steelers don't. I know they don't want the Steelers in there. I know that a lot of people around here want Mike Tomlin gone, and I want this to happen mostly because this is the opportunity to do it. Because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of teams in the AFC North that are going to lose their head coaches. Zach Taylor could be gone. Kevin Stefanski's likely gone. The loser of this game will probably lose their job as well, whether it's John Harbaugh for underachieving with the talent that he's had around him, or Mike Tomlin for the last 10 years of ineptitude and nothingness. Yeah, you got your 9th win of the season, but at what cost? Just when I think it can't get any worse. This is the bottom of the barrel, and I just don't have any hope at all for this matchup here. Yeah, it's at home at Acrisure Stadium, but it's already set in stone. The Ravens are going to win this game. The Ravens are going to host whoever's in the 5 seed, and yeah, the Steelers are going to have another legendary December collapse, which might very well be the worst one I have seen in the last 10 years. And there has been some bad ones, but this one may take the cake if it ends up being like it is. So, yeah, needless to say, I am going with the Baltimore Ravens to win this one, to go to 9-8. Steelers drop to 9-8, and I hope that this will be the time when the Steelers finally decide enough is enough, and it's time for a change. Even if they win, even if the Steelers win, I still won't be happy. I still won't be excited because we know what's going to happen in the wild card round. They're going to get shut out. They're going to get dismantled early on. They'll try to make a comeback that makes everybody think, oh, here they come. Here come the Steelers again. And then, no, it isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I have already accepted the fact that life does not give you happy endings. I've learned that now. I'm about to turn 37. I have learned after all these years that life just does not give you happy endings, no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you work. There is no hope for humanity at this point, and it's not even worth doing a New Year's message this time around because everyone's just like, let's hope the next year is better than this one. It's just like, it's never that way. The motto should simply be, and effectively, let's just hope we all survive next year. I mean, let's just hope we're all still here dealing with another bad year overall, because that's exactly what it is. Like I said, life gives you no happy endings there. I've just gone ahead and just fell into the hole of no hope whatsoever. So, congratulations, Ravens, on stealing yet another AFC North championship from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I hope someone drops a nuke on them, honestly. I mean, I don't know. I just want some happiness in this world, man, and this team was the last thing that was giving me happiness in this world, man, but it's just... This is the type of stuff that makes me not want to watch these games anymore because of the way that this whole thing was set up. I know I've been going on... I know this is just a rant now, and I'll just say this. Thank God I don't drink alcohol, man. I mean, the worst I drink is energy drinks and soda pops and water. If that's all I have to do then God bless me, because honestly... I could have had a thing of alcohol right now, and I'd probably be dead several times over, because this team will just do that to you. They'll drive you to drink. I'm like a Dan Backslide from the Dover Boys of Mental University. Confound those Pittsburgh Steelers! Oh, I hate them so much. I hate Mike. I hate Aaron. And I hate DK. They drive me to drink. Hope you've enjoyed my ranting, everybody. So, yeah, Ravens beat the Steelers. They win the AFC North. So, I've already wasted so much of your time. So, we still have a lot to cover here, too. So, let's wrap this up and go ahead and get to the final overall playoff predictions after everything is said and done on Sunday night. So, when it's all said and done, what will the playoff picture look like when 11 o'clock on Sunday night happens? Well, I think it'll look like this. The AFC's 1 seed will be the Denver Broncos. They'll get the bye week. The matchups will be 7-seeded Los Angeles Chargers at 2-seeded New England Patriots, the 6-seeded Buffalo Bills at the 3-seeded Jacksonville Jaguars, and the 5-seeded Houston Texans at the 4-seeded Baltimore Ravens. In the NFC, the Seattle Seahawks will have the bye week as the number 1 seed. It'll be the 7th-seeded Green Bay Packers at the 2-seeded Chicago Bears, the 6th-seeded San Francisco 49ers at the 3-seeded Philadelphia Eagles, and the 5-seeded Los Angeles Rams at the 4-seeded Carolina Panthers. A lot of rematches in this playoff picture, too. Houston and Baltimore met earlier in the season, where Houston beat them, and now it's going to be a rematch with C.J. Stroud, and this time Lamar Jackson. Green Bay and Chicago have had a couple of matchups earlier this year, of course. Los Angeles and Carolina, of course, the Panthers shockingly beat the Rams in that one, so should be intriguing if that actually turns out to be the case overall. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the team that I think will land the number 1 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, and that team is Raiders! The Las Vegas Raiders cement the number 1 pick in the NFL Draft at 2-15. Yeah, not really much of a shocker whatsoever because the Raiders have just been that terrible, and essentially they need a quarterback. And there's a lot of good quarterback options in the 2026 NFL Draft class. Of course, the big one, of course, is Fernando Mendoza from the Heisman Trophy winner from Illinois. And, the quarterback and some other prospects in particular that could be potentially the number 1 choice. Well, there's a couple of options, but they don't really need another running back. I mean, Jeremiah Love is a possibility. If they want to wait maybe and give someone else a chance, there's also a couple of other quarterbacks that could be potential. Dante Moore from Oregon. Ty Simpson is probably an option from Alabama. Carson Beck could be a day 2 option for them overall, but in terms of the other teams that are in the playoff, the draft positioning right now, New York Giants would be number 2, the Jets would be 3, the Tennessee Titans would be number 4, and the Arizona Cardinals would be 5. It would then be the Cleveland Browns at 6, Washington at 7, the Saints at 8, Miami Dolphins at 9, Chiefs at 10, Cincinnati at 11, the Falcons at 12, Detroit at 13, Tampa Bay at 14, Indianapolis at 15, Cowboys at 16, Steelers at 17, and 18, the Vikings. And of course, we'll wait to see what the playoffs do with the other 14 teams in there. But that's where it stands right now. And like I said, I think the Raiders desperately need a quarterback. I think this is the prime position to get a guy like Fernando Mendoza and get a good coach around him. And we'll watch to see what happens there. But with all that said, let's talk about the game I'm going to be covering this week. Because like I said, I'm not doing the Ravens and Steelers game because I know I'm not going to be able to take it. So which game am I going to be covering for this week's Sunday Night NFL Rewatch? Let's go ahead and get the NFL Draft Selection, the Pick Is In music from ESPN, can we? Got my card right here, which is really nothing, but the game that I will be doing for the Week 18 finale of the Reviewing Network Live Sunday Night NFL Rewatch will be the Seattle Seahawks versus the San Francisco 49ers, with the winner taking the number 1 seed on Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be right here on the Reviewing Network Live, and really, it was not that hard of a choice, especially, I think my choice, it really was close, it was close between the Buccaneers and Panthers, and the Seahawks and 49ers, and I essentially chose Seahawks 49ers largely because of the implications of who will get the number 1 seed in that matchup here. And I mean, that's the biggest one to look at with that particular matchup there. So that's the game I'm going to be doing this week. And the Buccaneers and Panthers, essentially, I decided not to do it, especially because of what the Falcons' implications are. Because it would, even if the Buccaneers lose that game, or the Panthers lose that game, they still have a chance to get the division if the Falcons beat the Saints on Sunday. So, yeah, so that's why I went with the Seahawks and 49ers game. Should be an exciting matchup overall. The last time these two teams met in the regular season finale, it was a really good thriller for the number 1 seed. I mean, Seattle literally was inches away from having the number 1 seed, but they ended up becoming the 5 seed, and then the rest is history. So, but yeah, that's the game I'll be covering on Saturday night, not Sunday night. The Reviewing Network Live Saturday Night NFL Rewatch, the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. That'll be at 8 o'clock Saturday. I'll be watching that game, and then I'll have the game shortly afterward on this channel here on the Reviewing Network Live. So be sure to tune in after that on Saturday night. So there we go. And, I'll do one more thing here, because I wasn't really going to do this, but let's get an indication of who might be on the hot seat on Black Monday, because there's going to be a lot of teams that I think will very much be a team to watch out for on Black Monday whenever the season is over. So, which teams in particular do I think are going to be more than likely on the hot seat? Well, for one, I will say that I think the teams that will be safe, I think Kellen Moore will be safe because I think the Saints have done enough with Tyler Shuck to show some potential for next season. Raheem Morris, I'm not too confident will stick around here. I know he's been playing very well the last couple of weeks, and maybe that's the thing that will keep him together next season. But the Falcons, I think, have a lot more problems to deal with there. I put Raheem Morris as safe, but maybe on the hot seat. I think the teams that will definitely be looking for new head coaches, Cincinnati and Cleveland, especially Cleveland. I think the Kevin Stefanski era has come to an end and will come to an end on Sunday. Zach Taylor's run, I think, might come to an end as well. I think they just need to get somebody to really help Joe Burrow out and this Bengals team out in general. And Zach Taylor clearly is not the answer. We already know that the Giants and Titans will be looking for new head coaches as well. I think Shane Steichen from the Colts could be on the hot seat. Aaron Glenn could be on the hot seat too, even though he's only been there for one season. But I mean, this is a team right now that has not looked very good, and they were really looking to see what this guy could do. But it has been a near disaster for this team overall with him under center. But I do think that they'll keep him around for one more year, and then if it doesn't work out the next year, then they'll get rid of him. I think that's a guarantee on that front there. Do I think Dan Campbell gets fired? Probably not. I think they still will keep him around regardless. I think Pete Carroll will be gone as well. I think Pete Carroll will definitely be gone, that's for certain, especially after the year he's had. It has not been a good year for the Raiders. I think they started new with the number one pick overall. Jonathan Gannon, I think, is out too. I think that's a given. Mike McDaniel could be out as well. A lot of change coming to the Miami Dolphins at this point. And then, like I said, the loser of the Ravens-Steelers matchup, I would not be shocked at all if that coach gets fired, whether it's John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin, one of those two guys. I think one of them will be on the hot seat, and I think the one that makes it to the playoffs sticks around for the next season. I think that's more of a guarantee. And really, it doesn't seem like it should be that way because John Harbaugh's had success the last couple of years, but the big difference is they haven't been able to finish the job with it. I mean, they've had the chances to go to the AFC Championship game and to the Super Bowl, but they've never been able to capitalize on that. And Mike Tomlin, like I said, it's been a rough run not having the playoff success that you had early on in your career. And your time there, and he's been there for a long time, and it's been getting stale for him overall. I mean, I think now's the perfect time for him to just go ahead and leave if they lose this weekend, which they should lose. The only other one I would say to watch for is Andy Reid, but even then, I don't think Andy Reid's going to be completely gone for good. I think there's going to be definitely a lot of notable changes, specifically no Travis Kelce, because I think he'll retire. But I think Andy Reid will stick around for one more season as he tries to rebuild this franchise around. But I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to call it quits too. I mean, there's definitely a lot of notable scenarios here. If I had to pick the surefire teams that will replace their head coaches, Cleveland, number 1. Indianapolis, number 2. Arizona, number 3. Dolphins, number 4. Raiders, 5. Those would be my top 5, honestly. Those would be the 5 that I would say for certain that they will be teams that will be looking for new head coaches on Black Monday. They'll be the first ones to get fired overall. So there you go. I gave you a wide assortment of topics for this particular episode. A lot of things to delve into here. So we will see how this all transpires as the week goes on, and 1 week from now, we'll see where we are. We'll see if my predictions came true. We'll see if what I think happens this weekend leads into the playoffs here. More than likely, it's going to be radically different, but I think I've got a good idea of where things are going to stand here. So I've done pretty well the last couple of weeks. I've actually done a lot better than I expected to. 82% right for most of these predictions overall. All season long, so I'm doing good right now. I mean, I'm not doing as bad as I thought I would. I've gotten 11 of 16 correct the last 3 weeks in a row, so I'm consistent. So I must be doing something right. But there you go. That's it for this very long episode of the NFL Network. For sure, it is. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. Let me know down below what you think of my predictions overall. What teams do you think are going to look for new head coaches next season? Who's going to get the number 1 pick? What do you think the playoff picture is going to be like? Let me know your thoughts down below, of course. And if you like this and want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit that like button, the subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our last episode we did and also our playlist, too, And I will see you guys next week in 2026 for the first NFL Network episode of the 2025-26 playoffs. So until then, have a happy new year, and I'll see you guys next year. Take care. The following has been a presentation of the Reviewing Network Sports.